Today we're turning this old pickle jar into an even older looking lantern. So stay tuned. Greetings adventurers and welcome to Skill Tree, where we learn how to do just about everything. So this October we are going to be part of the Brandywine Festival, which is the first official Middle-earth event to ever take place, and it's happening in the Shire, and I'm so excited for it. Now I'm going to be making this project for like an in-time light source so that it won't like throw off the vibe for carrying around a flashlight or something. But if you aren't into live action roleplay or any of this can be used for decor, it could be just kind of a fun project. So yeah, let's just jump right in on this thing. Now I'm very specifically trying to keep this project as cheap as possible. I wanted to use mostly resources I already had around. So for the actual glass of the lantern, I'm just using this old pickle jar I have. It's sturdy, it's a nice wide shape, and I happen to have a lot of them because I like pickles. Also, it's free. It's perfect. Also free was this funnel I have here, which I usually use to put leather dye back in the bottle if I've poured out too much. The thought here is it's going to act as kind of the conical cap that's on top of the lantern. I'm basically trying to mimic some of these old looking lanterns here. First things first though, I needed to clean up all of the dye on this funnel. Now if you don't have a funnel, you can go pick one up from like an automotive store. They're really, really cheap. Or if this is going to be inside, you can use something like an EVA foam and just kind of roll it up to be that cone shaped and then glue it together. You're clever, you'll figure out something conical shaped if you need to, but this is what I had. Mine just had this little tag hanging off on the side that I decided to remove with some scissors. Then just sanded that area smooth so it didn't look weird. Alright, so that is that like conical top that's going to be in this lantern and the glass body of the lantern itself. For the rest of it, I want to make some kind of a stand and framework for it just to kind of close everything in and protect it. And I figured I'd do this bit out of wood because, again, I have some laying around, and if you don't, it's fairly cheap to get your hands on some. To get the measurements for the base, I just put this compass roughly in the center and came out about 1/2 of an inch past it. Obviously, if you don't have a compass, you can just use a ruler and make that measurement yourself. But I used this measurement to transcribe a circle onto this piece of poplar here that's about 3/4 inch thick. Then use my jigsaw to cut it out. Next, with the jar in place in the center, I tried to evenly mark out 4 little spots that I can then drill partway down into to accept these little 1/4 inch dowels here. These are basically just going to surround this jar, helping to keep it in place and also protecting it at least a little bit from getting hit kind of broadside by things. With that base sticking out pretty proud and those things around it, I'm imagining anything hitting it is going to have to get it just right before it hits that glass, I hope. I just made sure my dowels were all the same length and ending right where the jar kind of transitions towards the lid there. And with that little cone on it, you can really start to see this thing coming together. I do want to emphasize here, don't get hung up on the materials that are being used. Look more towards like the vibe and the technique. I just say this because if you don't have these laying around, but let's say you have a bunch of old pens that no longer work. Well, those little casing of the pens, if you remove the ink from it, those would be perfect little side dowels too, right? Or you don't even have to use dowels. Later on, when we glue everything in place, you can kind of glue things to the sides to make it look like there are dowels in there. I just want you to feel like you have a lot of creativity in this space and don't feel like you have to go out and get all of the same stuff I have. This is just kind of like a process I'm going through. I just say this because I was 100% figuring this out as I went too, and I actually saw a whole bunch of different options of what I could have done to do this. Now, with those dowels though, there is a bit of a problem because they are just kind of floating in space, right? I don't want them to be like free turning or bending at all. And I also need a transition point from where that cone becomes the rest of the body. So to do that, I actually cut this ring out here that is just slightly bigger than that cone and rests right on top of the shoulders of this jar here. Now I did cut out that ring with my laser, but that's mostly because of laziness. If you have a coping saw or a jigsaw, you can get that shape as well. And with that, we have all of the main parts to make this thing. This is a super easy project. So now it's time to make it actually look like a lantern. Starting with our jar, I don't want it to just look like a pickle jar. I kind of want it to have a lantern-y vibe. So to achieve that, I actually am using this spray paint here that just gives a frosted glass effect. Just make sure you cover it evenly and try not to put too thick of a coat on at once because you don't want to see any drip marks. Just keep applying until it reaches the opacity that you're looking for. All right, next I want to prep that funnel to look more like the conical cap that would go onto one of those lanterns rather than just a funnel, right? I started with cutting that spout so there was only maybe 1/4 of an inch left over, which just happens to be the perfect size to accept one of these little drawer pulls here. Drawer, draw, drawer. I have a really strong New England accent when it comes to the word draw. No, drawer. I always do it wrong. Draw is this, drawer is this. Killing me. Anywho, to secure it, I just grabbed the hardware that it came with as well as some washers, lined everything up in that funnel spout, and then tightened it in with a screwdriver, which actually makes this thing look like one of those little tops. In fact, the drawer pull makes a cool handle you can hold it with too. Now eventually I'm gonna glue that to the cap of the pickle jar so I can still get in it and actually change out the little candle or lantern or whatever. But for now, I'm gonna leave that to the side because how far down that comes is really dependent on the rest of the framework. So moving on to that framework, I decided to dress up the base a little bit by adding these little knobs here. These are just little wooden nubbins that I think would look cool as feet. So with that in mind, I just slapped some glue onto them and glued them roughly below where the dowels will go in, making it look like those dowels continue all the way through. Or, you know, if you wanted to and you planned ahead, you could just actually make dowels continue all the way through. Up to you. All right, so one last thing before I kind of put everything together to see where it lands is I needed to drill these little tiny holes inside of that top ring there just to accept those dowels. I didn't put them all the way through because I was afraid the wood would kind of chip out and I didn't want to deal with it, but I did it just enough so that they would seat inside of there. Now, once I add everything together, I can finally see how that funnel sits and make sure that it's pressing up against that cap. I need that cap to be making contact with the inside of the funnel, but without any spaces. So this is kind of my last chance to change out those dowels and the height of everything so that everything ends up tight and flush. And at this point, I was really excited about this. This looks like a little lantern already. It's fantastic. Okay, so next I needed to lock that funnel into place. So first I added just a little bit of this super glue right onto the top of that lid there. Then I carefully put my funnel into place, making sure it was nice and straight and flush with everything else. Once that glue hardened, I was able to unscrew it and then use some hot glue all around that ring just to make sure it really locks into place. And this is one of the nice things about using a pickle jar for this is because a lot of them have those little kind of grooves cut out so you can grip them well. But it also means that hot glue gets into all of those little grooves, really locking that in place. As one last part of that kind of conical cap assembly there, I wanted a way to attach like a rope of some sort so I can carry it around or hang it. My answer to that was actually just to twist up some of this metal wire here. I didn't show it, but to actually twist it up, I just put two strands inside of a drill and the other like side of it inside of a clamp and just turned it on and twisted up. If you have any reasonably thick wire or actually like little hooks or whatever, this is just the time to put those in. To secure it, I first drilled 2 holes inside of the cap and then 2 matching holes where I wanted the little hooks to come out on top of that cone there. Then I carefully fished my wire through everything and bent whatever was exposed into this nice little hook design. This way, so long as that cap is on securely, all of the weight for this thing is going to be on the cap itself and on those threads, rather than on my glue-up job onto that cone. Hopefully stopping it from eventually just kind of falling down over time. Though, while working with the wire, whoa, that was good alliteration. While working with the wire, we wanted a way to work the wick. Oh, that sounded naughty. No, forget the whole thing. I just needed a way to be able to get to the candle or whatever else I had in there without just kind of turning the thing over and shaking it, right? I just ended up making this little disc and ring assembly here that's just small enough to fit into the mouth of that jar and glued them together. Then I bent up a piece of wire here so it had a ring at the bottom that I could glue to the bottom of that little assembly. This just kind of gives me a method to lift and lower that candle I have in place. Now, kind of an obvious disclaimer here, but worth making, I'm not making this thing to house a real candle. At most of the events I go to, you're not supposed to have actual flame around anyways, it's a safety issue. But if you did want to make something similar to this that could hold a real flame, you totally could. You just have to cut a hole in the lid of the pickle jar because obviously there needs to be some kind of an air exchange in there or it's just gonna die. And that cone needs to be made out of something metal, like an actual metal funnel or something. Again, for obvious reasons. You got a flame, you got heat coming up, though I'm sure if the candle is low enough, maybe it won't get hot enough to melt, but do you really want to risk it? I don't know. Anywho, with that little side quest done, it's time to actually assemble and paint this thing. I started by just dabbing a little bit of glue into the holes of the base, and then securing each one of my dowels into place. And damn, that rhymed. I'm like a poet today. I'm a poet and I didn't even realize. While these were curing, I made sure to put the jar in place so they at least had the right spacing in one direction, though they're a little bit twisted and turned down, and this is because there's really nothing holding them up at the top. That is going to be solved later on. There's enough flexibility in these dowels that I'm going to be able to rack them to be correct and to be straight. For now though, I'm confident just kind of letting them be, but if you wanted to be extra careful, you could tape around the jar so that they dry in the straight position. Speaking of that jar, I wanted it to have kind of an aged look. So I grabbed this distressed oxide ink pad that I got from Michael's a while back and just started dabbing it in place with a sponge, making kind of a vignette working from each end and fading towards the middle. Just giving the whole thing a nice and weathered appearance. But now comes the real fun part, because I want to make the body of this thing look like it's an aged and patinaed metal. So to do that, first I covered up the top bit, because I already like the way that looks. And for a base coat, I'm using this Rust-Oleum rubbed bronze. One, because it already has kind of a metallic texture and feel to it. But two, because it's the only thing I have that I know for a fact will bond to plastic. I didn't want to spend all this time painting this thing up just to have it flake off because it didn't like the substrate I'm putting it on. And after doing the cone and the rest of the whole assembly, I now have this nice uniform piece to work with. Okay, so here is the order of operations to get what I'm looking for. I'm gonna layer up some different metallic paints, followed by another color to make it look patinaed. So I started with this bronze color paint here and used a sponge, making sure I removed as much paint as possible so I had the ability to layer it as much as I needed to. After dabbing that coat in place, I did the same thing with a copper paint, kind of filling in the rest of those gaps. This is giving me this nice kind of metallic mottled appearance. Next, I'm busting out this acrylic teal here because that tends to be the color that copper ends up being. Look at the Statue of Liberty, for example. It is copper, but it's like that teal blue color. This, even more so than the other ones, I really wanted to make sure there was almost nothing left on my sponge so I can layer it up over time and really put it just where I wanted it. Happy with that, I went on to dry brushing some black just into the creases and again vignetting out from those sides to give it a more aged look. Now from here, to help meld everything together and make it look more cohesive and actually aged, I want to add a wash. But the problem is a wash is like a really watered down paint and it's gonna wash away some of that acrylic that I have there. So to stop that from happening, I just locked everything in using this clear coat. Once that dries, I decided to use this wash that I had from kind of a model painting set that I bought. Mostly because I'm lazy. If you don't want to buy this, you can make your own wash just by adding either like black or brown paint, whatever color you're going for, to water. You want to make it so it's like a milk consistency, not completely like watery, just a little bit thicker. And then adding just a little bit of dish soap. That's going to break up the surface tension and really help it get into all the little nooks and crannies. You really just need a drop of this. The wash acts just like an antiquing in leather. I just kind of put it everywhere, make sure I work it into all the little tiny spaces, and then wipe away any excess. You can see it immediately melds everything together, makes it all look like one piece, ages it. A wash is like magic when you're painting. It's so good. And trying it, look how amazing just this bit It's part of the process. You have to almost drop it at least once so you learn to appreciate it. But yeah, like I was saying, look at how good this looks. Even just like this, I feel like that's kind of cool. Can you imagine maybe like a row of a few of these kind of hanging up? They almost look medieval light bulb-y. But of course, that's not what we're going for. So we went ahead and did that entire process with the rest of this as well. Now to assemble the whole thing, I just added some hot glue to the bottom of my jar and fit that into place. Then I dabbed some wood glue into the little spaces I put for the dowels in that top ring, and carefully positioned that as well. And because I made sure it was all so tight, I was able to just kind of put on the lid, and that applied enough pressure to lock everything in place while it dried. Though I wanted to make sure that top ring's dowel assembly didn't dance around on me, right? Because it is still just kind of floating on the top. So to stop that from happening, I added some additional spots of hot glue just on the inside of that ring. By spacing those spots out, I essentially make a spacer, stopping everything from kind of moving around on me. As one last piece, I wanted to make kind of a rope that fits the vibe that I can hold this thing with. For that, I just had some of this rope lying around here, which I cut to be roughly a foot and a couple inches long, then made bites in the end, which I used some jute cordage to secure into that position. Then after adding them to the hooks where they go, look at how friggin' cute this thing is. I'm over the moon, one, with how the paint job came out. Like, It looks like old metal to me. This right here, that layering and that final wash really brought that together. But yeah, the whole thing has exactly the vibe I was going for. Like, it's been outside a lot. Maybe every time I come home, I just kind of hang it on my fence post or whatever, leave it there. I go back out, it's just there. It's been weathered and worn. It can be used this way here, hung on something, hung on a backpack, or for more sturdy, like direct lighting, I could hold it by the little handle knob here. The whole thing's super secure except for the candle bouncing around in there. Like, the jar is stuck in place. All of these little tines are stuck in place. I'm really proud of how this came out. And as an added benefit, because I didn't clean it well enough, it smells of pickles. It still smells of pickles. Anyways, all said, because I happen to have all of this stuff lying around, it didn't cost me anything to make this thing. But if you were buying everything brand new, it's a jar of pickles, it's a cheap plastic funnel here, some dowels, a little bit of wood in this knob. I don't know, I think you're looking at tops like 40-ish bucks. And you get to eat the pickles. It's a win-win, guys. But let me know what you would do different, or if you do try this project, make sure you join our Discord and share this with us. Link will be in the description below. I'd love to see your take on this project. Besides, you'll be joining this amazing community that is always impressing me with the projects that they're making. Not only is it cool to watch them level up their skills and actually make all these projects, but they're also just amazing people. It's fun to see and take part in the conversations that are taking place there with people who also like to craft nerd stuff. It's great. Finally, if you like this project or like what we do here, consider giving us some of that like it love, and don't forget to subscribe so you know when we release new content. In the meantime, though, keep leveling up, you. You've made it to the end screen. YouTube loves it when you do that, and it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Another fantastic way to support this channel is by joining these people in noble ranks. These are our Patreon and the lantern that lights my way. Seriously, we couldn't do any of this without them. It's because of them we're able to afford all of the pickles. And you know, the other stuff too. Special shout out to our newest high tier Patreon members, David Mills and Azurla. And a massive shout out to our Grandmaster tier Patreon members, Ghetto Medic, Just a Guy from the Southwest, Wild Fox 99, Froggy, Dragon Designs, and Yuri Sashro. It's never gonna stop meaning the world to me that y'all support this channel, so thank you so much. If you like what we do here and want to support us, consider joining our Patreon, link in the description below. Otherwise, you can click on one of these videos here that YouTube thinks you'd like, and that helps out a lot too. All right, I must go and make like 6 more of these things. So many pickles. Oh, I didn't think this through. Can one die of pickle overdose? Ooh. Wish me luck, I guess?